Hello, everyone. We are so excited to have you join us for Leadership Florida's Leadership Exchange podcast. Today, our guest is Stacy Baier from the Helios Education Foundation, where she serves as the Senior Vice President of Florida Community Engagement Operations and Strategic Partnerships. She's all over the place, has a lot of responsibility. We are delighted to have you, Stacy.
Thank you for having me.
It's wonderful. So, our sponsor for our Leadership Exchange podcast is Sunshine Ace Hardware. And we've started a little fun tradition. And you know their motto, we all do. Ace is the place with the helpful hardware folks. And I'm going to ask you to finish this sentence. The Helios Education Foundation is the place with.
With the commitment to ensure student success across Florida and Arizona.
So let's start out high level. Let us know, what is the Helios Education Foundation? Pretend our viewers and listeners don't know anything about you. Who are you?
It's one of my favorite questions. The Helios Education Foundation is a community impact organization working across both Florida and Arizona, dedicated to ensuring that students have access and success in post-secondary education. And we do that through a multitude of approaches. Helios is not just a grant maker. We also look to use data and research to inform some of the decisions that we make and to help inform the sector of education. We're also an organization that's focused on systems change. So how can we leverage policy, whether that's small p policy in a school district or university or a college, or at the state level that would help to ensure and support student success. And then we also leverage the opportunity for communications like podcasts to lift up some of the findings that we have, whether it's through our grant making and community investments or through some of our research or through some of our policy that can help inform the state more broadly, communities more broadly, in ways that they too can impact student success. For our work, we really operate within three pillars. One is ensuring that students have success in third grade reading proficiency. We're looking to increase college enrollment, and we're also ultimately looking to increase degree attainment across both Florida and Arizona.
Wow, I love your three pillars, and you know, Stacy, as a Leadership Florida member, and thank you for being a great Leadership Florida member as well. You know that the only sector issue initiative that Leadership Florida has elected to lift up is education. It's the only exception we have. We don't, focus on anything specifically, other initiatives other than education, because we believe that a strong education foundation in Florida lifts all boats, and we will be a thriving, stronger state if our citizens and when our citizens are well educated. So we are so aligned, and you, Helios Education Foundation, has helped us with that mission by the funding and support for our education class program and other things. So I want to know a little bit more about Helios. What is trending right now with you? What is important? What are you focusing on? What are you leaning in on as a foundation?
That is a great question and perfect timing. So, as you know, Helios is celebrating or actually ending the 20th anniversary celebration. So we're technically 21 now. But it's been a great time to sort of reflect back on what has our work been for the last 20 years and sort of where do we think it's been going. And we've been having a lot of conversations with our board and our staff team to really assess, are we in the right space? Are there tweaks and adjustments that it is we want to make? And I'll start by saying our first 20 years was committed to post-secondary access and success, and we're still in that lane. We're firmly behind that mission and purpose for our organization. Where I think we might begin to see some tweaks and opportunities is really around the edges and really leaning into some new opportunities that we see that maybe haven't existed in the past. So one of the areas that we're currently looking to explore is an emphasis around math. One of the things that we found after the pandemic is that student achievement in math really took decline. And so but we know that math is a gatekeeper for students being able to access post-secondary education. So where along the education continuum can we continue to invest, research, and think about ways that we can intervene to help students be more successful? Another thing that I can say 20 years ago we were not talking about at all is AI.
Mm.
We're not AI experts, but we're trying to lean in to understand how can AI really transform the educational experience for students. At a minimum, we know that students need to understand how to use AI as an educational tool. We need to support teachers, but are there some key levers that AI could be utilized in to really help to accelerate student learning in the classroom? And then the last area that I would say we're really contemplating is around pathways, recognizing that not all students are going to take the same pathway. Even in my own life, I know I have two high school students. One is really interested in culinary, and one wants to go to college, and he doesn't really know what for yet, but he knows he wants to go. We need to be open to recognizing that there are different pathways that students will take. We're not taking our eye off the ball of the importance of education after high school, but what that looks like for different students, we're beginning to explore what those possibilities might be and how we might be able to craft different pathways that help students along that way.
That's why education foundations like yours are so important because you can shift as the times and change and focusing on math as you see a decline there or a weakness there, staying focused on third grade reading levels, that's so key. And then weaving in the AI, I love that because we need institutions like yours to lean in on those, do research, find best practices, and share it with the education community and the business community and foundations like ours, nonprofit organizations like ours, that can grow and learn from you and help spread that information through our network. So keep pushing on that, girlfriend. I want to see you keep doing that, feed that to us because we're a partner. I'll depend on you to bring that to us because, we always ask you to speak to our class programs every year and you're engaged with us in lots of ways. So I'm going to be following you and making sure that you're continuing to send us what you're learning as well because every conversation I'm having is weaving in the AI conversation, whether it's energy or it's banking or it's engineering, every single thing, even supermarkets, I mean, had that same conversation with Publix recently. What's going on with this? So I'm so glad to hear you say that. So given that, think about this for a minute. With all the things you're leaning in, what do you think is your biggest challenge? What's hitting you? What's keeping you up at night?
I think the biggest challenge we are facing is a sort of steady drumbeat that we're hearing that college isn't worth it. And we define college very broadly. It's education after high school. And when we did some research and really dug in to understand, so what is the economic difference if a kid graduates from high school or doesn't, or gets some college, no degree, an AA degree, a bachelor's and beyond? Sort of what does that look like? And there's a huge economic benefit that we can't ignore to students who are pursuing education after high school. And it just continues to grow the farther you get away from high school. So some college is this far, AA degree, bachelor's degree. So when we lean into the economic value, it's not just for the individual, it's for society at large. Individuals who have education, who are able to earn more money, who maybe don't experience a recession the same way. People who had degrees and certifications held on to their jobs more when we've gone through recessions in the past. There is a societal benefit to that. And lastly, there's a benefit to our communities and the state of Florida that racks up billions of dollars of economic benefit to our state. So it's not just about impacting that one individual, it's sort of the residual effect over time. And when we looked at things like increasing college enrollment just by 10%, if we just focused as a state on increasing college enrollment by 10%, we would see over an $8 billion gain for the
Wow.
state of Florida in just that small focus. So if we can incrementally begin to focus on some of these areas and start to dispel some of the myth that college really isn't worth it, the economic data, it adds up. It says it is.
Wow.
So let's get behind that and really try to support more students for pursuing education beyond high school.
That's an incredible statistic. And I think there's so many of us, when we want to create big change and scale, we don't think about 10%. And you just threw down a statistic there that has a huge impact, and it makes it seem more attainable when you
Mhm.
break it down like that. So I love that. I love to hear that and had no idea. Wow.
People
I,
work well with goals, right? In education, we're setting high expectations for students. Students go to where the bar is. We as communities go to where the bar is. It was probably, I don't know, 12, 15 years ago that the Florida College Access Network, also Braulio Colon, another Leadership Florida grad, helped the state, FCAN helped the state establish an attainment goal, which is 60% of working aged adults holding a highly valued credential or degree by 2030. Guess what? We have communities all over the state that are powering forward on that attainment goal and are likely going to achieve it. So, people like goals. They like to know where are we heading, and even, maybe creates a little bit of competition that we all thrive in. How are we going to get there?
yeah, I agree. I agree. All right, I'm going to shift a little bit a minute, and I want to ask you about Helios as an employer.
Mm.
Um, how do you feel being a colleague, a professional, enrolled with Helios for many years? How do you feel about them as an employer? What excites you most, and what keeps you there?
Wendy, this might be my favorite question because, in this season, we're always reflecting on, what are you grateful for? And it's been a real privilege to work here at Helios. As you know, this is my second tour of duty. I call myself the boomerang. I worked here when we opened the Florida office back in 2007, 2008, left for a little while and came back about 2.5 years ago. And what I love is that I've been very fortunate to find an organization that connects my passion with purpose. Every single day, I am challenged as an employee at Helios to get up and advance student success. Who wouldn't want to do that? And I've given the support through a variety of, different means. We have financial means to be able to do grants, but I also have an amazing team. We were talking about team a little bit earlier. The folks in research and our evaluation team who can help steer us in the right direction with data that helps guide the decisions that we're going to make, knowing that we aren't doing these like shotgun approaches to community investment, that we're going to use both our research and our community investment to look at ways that we can influence policy and systems change longer term. We're not doing what's it called, a flash in the pan. We are really looking for long-term change and having an organization that is established in perpetuity to ensure that we can continue to make impact for forever. It's been an absolute wonderful place to work. The other thing I would say is it's very much aligned to my values as an individual. I grew up in a family that valued education, but my parents weren't able to attain it at the same level that I've been able to attain it. And I know that I came to the table with some opportunities that not all students had. So working with an organization that has been focused on historically underrepresented students and low income students to ensure that they have the means to be able to have the same type of experience that some of their peer students have been able to have, to make sure that, we're kind of backfilling some of the opportunities that not everybody has when they come to the education space. That has been something that I've been deeply committed to as an individual, and something that I experienced firsthand. So to be able to live my passion purpose, 45, 50 hours a week and work at an organization that's perfectly aligned with what I care about has been a real blessing and a gift.
That is fantastic to hear. And for all of those reasons, we are, and more, we are so glad at Leadership Florida that Helios has chosen us as a recipient of your grants. And it has helped us blossom and move our mission forward. And we have the same goals that you do. So I'm so happy that we are bonded together with this initiative and all of the great things that Helios is focused on and doing in Florida and in Arizona. How lucky are we that there's only two states that have been chosen, and we are one of them. And it is just a fantastic opportunity for us. Stacy Baier, this has been a wonderful chat together. I am so grateful to you and the Helios Education Foundation for your support and for you as a Leadership Florida member and how highly engaged you have stayed with us as well. You're the gift that keeps on giving. You're always doing things for Leadership Florida, and we are so grateful. So, with that, we'll say goodbye and thanks everyone for listening. This has been the Leadership Exchange, sponsored by the Sunshine Ace Hardware stores, and we've had Stacy Baier as our guest today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was such a great conversation with Stacy Baier, who is with the Helios Education Foundation. She is a lifetime member from the West Central region, and Helios just celebrated 21 years. I loved when she talked about that they are not just a grant maker, but they use research for assessments. And she shared with us an amazing statistic. If we increase college enrollment by just 10%, there will be an $8.3 billion economic output. Let you think about that for just a minute. Wow. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Leadership Exchange, hosted by Leadership Florida and sponsored by Sunshine Ace Hardware.